America is the only country where people panic over a $5 gas hike, then casually drop $400 on something they found while doom scrolling at 2 a.m. And somehow, that's not even the weird part. Trust me, this goes downhill fast. 1. Watching a grown adult wheel a shopping cart overflowing exclusively with limited edition patriotic soda cans, each featuring a grimly smiling founding father, reveals a level of financial optimism bordering on performance article. This wasn't for a party, or a collection, or a themed museum display. This was someone who truly believed carbonated Jefferson was a retirement plan waiting to mature. They told the cashier to keep the receipt for tax purposes, which is a phrase that should automatically trigger a wellness check. Weeks later, after learning the global market for sugar water, featuring historical figures, is surprisingly tiny, they attempted to resell the cans online at triple the cost. When the world failed to reward their patriotism-adjacent investment strategy, they consumed the assets, turning their portfolio into beverage history. It was the only liquidation event in American finance that ended with burping. 2. A suburban dad once plowed his entire tax refund into a backyard pizza oven because a late-night cooking video convinced him homemade pizza would save thousands annually. This is the same flawed logic that gets people to buy juicers, air fryers, and elliptical machines that become slow, dusty sculptures. The oven arrived in 3 massive crates, devoured half the patio, and required enough propane to power a small banquet hall. The first pizza emerged looking like Pompeii had baked it. The second fused itself to the stone like a culinary hostage situation. Undeterred, the dad briefly considered taking a pizza-making course before discovering the real cost of his savings device, an HOA violation for non-compliant outdoor structures. Suddenly, his thrifty dreams had the price tag of a minor felony. The oven now lives under a tarp, quietly reminding everyone that math done after 11 p.m. is never legally binding. 3. A woman in Ohio spotted a decorative sign reading "Live Laugh Lobster" and apparently mistook it for a spiritual calling. This wasn't a beach house or a seafood restaurant. This was a beige apartment hundreds of miles from saltwater. Yet she declared it the new theme of her life, which is how she justified buying lobster-patterned curtains, lobster-shaped soap dispensers, and a bright red rug that transformed her living room into an underwater crime documentary. Each paycheck added another crustacean to the ever-expanding collection until the place resembled a Red Lobster gift shop curated by someone going through a highly decorative breakdown. When her landlord visited for maintenance, he hesitated at the door before asking gently whether she was planning to open a seafood business without a permit. She wasn't, but financially speaking, she had already invested at dinner rush levels. 4. Some man decided he needed a Wi-Fi-enabled smart toaster that burned inspirational quotes into bread because nothing kickstarts a productive morning like motivational carbs. It cost more than a mid-range laptop, but he justified it by claiming it optimized breakfast workflow, which is a phrase invented solely to make marketers feel powerful. The toaster required app pairing, firmware updates, and a strong signal, meaning breakfast now depended on router stability. It booted up slower than a government computer and occasionally printed quotes backward like a bread-based cry for help. After 2 weeks of fighting error messages and scorch patterns that resembled Rorschach tests, he gave up and bought a normal $12 toaster. The smart one now sits unplugged on the counter like a failed invention on Shark Tank, serving only as a monument to humanity's ongoing feud with toast. 5. A couple decided their wedding required live alpacas for aesthetic cohesion, which is a phrase no relationship counselor should ever hear. The rental fee rivaled their catering budget, but they insisted the animals would elevate the moment. The alpacas arrived in bow ties, instantly becoming the most expensive and least cooperative guests at the event. One chewed the floral arrangements like it was a buffet, and another spat directly onto the archway where vows were supposed to look meaningful. The photographer called it charming chaos, which is how professionals say, "You paid too much to complain." Weeks later, as the couple reviewed their credit card bill, they realized that the adorable wool tornadoes cost more than the honeymoon. The alpacas didn't add magic. They added debt, drama, and a lingering smell that no amount of romance could justify. 6. An office worker spent nearly $900 on a life-size cardboard cutout of themselves because they believed visual presence boosts productivity. This was not satire. This was a strategic plan. They positioned the cutout at their desk so co-workers would feel attended to, which is the kind of logic that gets startups shut down. Instead of promoting efficiency, the cutout startled employees, confused visitors, and violated at least 2 HR guidelines concerning objects that resemble sentient beings. Eventually, HR insisted it be removed due to persistent psychological disruption, a phrase usually reserved for horror movies. The cutout now sits in the owner's garage, slowly warping in humidity, silently commemorating the moment someone mistook cardboard cloning for professional development. Meanwhile, the actual desk remains personless and equally unproductive. 7. A man purchased a $300 artisan ice cube mold because he was convinced his drinks deserved perfect clarity. This masterpiece of frozen engineering produced a single orb of ice the size of a grapefruit and required daily freezer gymnastics to function. He proudly dropped these giant spheres into generic store-brand soda, achieving a beverage experience so pointlessly luxurious it practically whispered the word tax bracket. The mold consumed half his freezer, exiling every food item except the ice itself, creating a diet primarily composed of beverages and regret. His friends suggested chilling his drink normally, but he claimed they didn't understand refinement, which is a bold stance for someone drinking cola over a frozen bowling ball. Eventually, he broke the mold while prying out an especially stubborn sphere, ending his brief but dramatically unnecessary journey into Hode ice culture. 8. A suburban dog owner signed up for an elite monthly pet treat subscription costing more than her own gym membership because she believed her dog appreciated ethical ingredients and curated textures. The dog, who routinely consumed mulch and once tried to eat a USB cable, disagreed. Every month, a box arrived filled with alpaca wool chew toys, bespoke treats shaped like artisanal pastries, and seasonal outfits designed for a dog that hated sleeves. The boxes piled up untouched while the dog remained loyal to a crusty tennis ball purchased at a gas station. Nevertheless, she kept the subscription because she liked the idea of owning a pet with developed taste, a trait the dog demonstrated only when choosing which shoes to destroy. The only thing truly enriched by the experience was the company billing her card. 9. A college student blew an entire textbook budget on a luxury gaming chair because ergonomics equals academic success. The chair had lumbar support, LED lighting, and speakers built into the headrest, turning every study session into a fully immersive rave. Unfortunately, textbooks are still required for classes, a detail that went unnoticed until syllabus week. The student attempted to rely on free PDFs, which were either missing pages, warped beyond readability, or clearly scanned by someone juggling the book and a flashlight. Soon they were borrowing materials from classmates, creating an education strategy that resembled a scavenger hunt with no scoreboard. Meanwhile, the gaming chair remained unscathed, glowing proudly, cushioning the weight of countless hours of procrastination. It became the most comfortable symbol of academic mismanagement ever engineered. 10. A man installed color-changing LEDs under his pickup truck because he believed that lighting the asphalt in national anthem colors would boost horsepower emotionally. The truck became a mobile rave, glowing red, white, and blue every time he cruised past the local diner. His battery, however, experienced emotional devastation and died repeatedly from powering the patriotic light show. Instead of recognizing the cause, he blamed government-regulated battery conspiracies, which is a phrase that pairs beautifully with zero evidence. When the truck eventually needed expensive electrical repairs, he declared the mechanic was anti-freedom. The lights now flicker inconsistently, giving the truck a faintly haunted look, as though it's trying to Morse code its desire to be owned by someone who understands electricity. 11. A young professional purchased a $450 productivity planner made from Italian leather infused with mindfulness energy, which is marketing's way of saying a notebook with an ego. They meticulously filled it with color-coded intentions, grids, charts, and inspirational stickers that cost more than groceries. Unfortunately, the planner did not come with the discipline required to complete tasks, turning every page into a graveyard of optimistic but abandoned ambitions. By spring, the planner was too emotionally burdensome to carry, like a wallet full of expired dreams. It was quietly replaced with a cheap spiral notebook that performed the same function without demanding spiritual reverence. The expensive planner now sits on a shelf, judging its owner with empty pages and premium stitching. 12. A man subscribed to an unlimited car wash membership despite living in a region where rainfall occurs more frequently than coherent political debates. He proudly drove through the wash daily, convinced he was winning financially, even though his car, a fading sedan with peeling paint, did not improve aesthetically beyond appearing slightly less dusty for an hour. Workers began greeting him by name, which should have been the first red flag. The sunroof still leaked, the bumper still rattled, and the interior still smelled faintly of despair, yet he clung to the illusion of automotive luxury. The membership ultimately was not a service. It was a donation to the industry of misplaced confidence. 13. A person bought a $700 vintage typewriter solely to cultivate an artistic ambiance. Despite lacking any writing habit, typing skill, or genuine interest in the analog world, they displayed the machine prominently, flanked by blank paper that remained untouched except for occasional dust accumulation. Attempts to use the typewriter produced jams, ink smears, and noises resembling mechanical complaints. Whenever guests asked about their writing, they responded with vague statements about letting inspiration simmer, which is a polite way of saying, "I purchased a hobby instead of practicing one." In the end, the typewriter became a decorative monument to aspirational spending, successfully holding down unpaid bills it should have prevented. 14. A man invested in a $1,200 smart mirror that assessed skin hydration, stress levels, and emotional radiance, which is not a medical term but rather a marketing hallucination. Each morning he consulted the mirror as though receiving a royal briefing, only to be told repeatedly that he was tired, stressed, and dehydrated. Facts available for free from his own face. The mirror then recommended expensive skincare products through its companion app, turning his bathroom into a boutique store curated by someone afraid of aging. The routines did nothing except consume money at a rate usually associated with slot machines. Ultimately, the smart mirror revealed the same truth every reflective surface shares. It is not the technology that needs improvement. 15. A woman subscribed to a mystery candle box, promising fragrance journeys inspired by global moods, which turned out to smell like abstract concepts, urban fog, midnight concrete, and whispering tax season. Her apartment soon resembled a scented commentary on late-stage capitalism. Guests politely sniffed the air while silently questioning whether dusty library anxiety was supposed to smell like damp cardboard. Despite accumulating an archive of aromatic confusion, she feared canceling the subscription because the next candle might deliver the perfect smell she imagined. It never did. The only true scent produced by the subscription was the distinct aroma of money burning slowly, month after month. 16. A man proudly rolled a chrome-plated shopping cart into a warehouse club and began loading it with industrial-sized bags of limited-batch gourmet marshmallows because he believed marshmallows were the next crypto, confidently explaining to a baffled employee that the marshmallow market was on the verge of disruption, which is a bold claim about a food that melts in hot chocolate. He stored the sugary investment bricks in his garage like edible bullion, only to discover that rodents found his fortune far more compelling than the global economy. And soon the entire stash dissolved into a sticky polymer bonded permanently to the concrete floor, making his financial portfolio the only one in America that required a paint scraper and a prayer to liquidate. 17. A woman purchased a $600 smart indoor herb garden the size of a space capsule because she wanted locavore energy without touching soil. But the machine required subscription nutrient pods, humidity calibration, app syncing, and the emotional resilience of a NASA botanist. Her basil sprouted like it was negotiating its release, died repeatedly, and cost more per leaf than imported truffles. Yet she kept buying new pods because the app kept telling her she was on track for success. A phrase that meant nothing once the garden began flashing the error message, "root health compromised," effectively diagnosing both the plant and her financial decisions with the same condition. 18. A guy convinced himself that purchasing a $900 influencer-endorsed blender would transform his life because it had 37 blending modes and the personality of a motivational speaker. Yet after 2 smoothies and 1 explosive lid malfunction, he realized he lacked the discipline required to wash the thing, let alone operate it regularly. The blender sat on the counter like a stainless steel monument to self-delusion, vibrating angrily whenever touched. And when he finally tried reselling it online, potential buyers claimed it had divorce energy, which is not a real metric but apparently applies to appliances purchased during identity crises. leaving him with a loud, judgmental kitchen object and 0 smoothies. 19. A man marched into a sporting goods store and bought a $1,400 inflatable kayak because a commercial convinced him he was one purchase away from becoming a rugged outdoorsman, despite living miles from any respectable body of water. Inflating the kayak required 45 minutes of physical labor he had not prepared for, but he persisted and launched it triumphantly, only to drift helplessly in circles due to having absolutely no idea how to use a paddle, returning to shore sunburned, exhausted, and defeated by basic physics. The kayak now lives in his closet, partially deflated and serving as an extremely expensive laundry basket. 20. A woman purchased a $500 candle warming lamp designed to melt candles without burning the wick, effectively spending hundreds of dollars to extend the lifespan of candles that also cost hundreds of dollars, creating a financial logic spiral worthy of congressional budgeting. She used the lamp nightly until her prized candle melted into a wax lagoon resembling a chemical spill, then replaced the costly bulb with one that required the GDP of a small town to purchase. By year's end, she had spent enough on accessories, bulbs, and replacement candles to finance a mild addiction, all in service of preserving wax that refused to be preserved. 21. A man fell into the abyss of decorative throw pillows after reading a lifestyle blog that described them as emotional architecture, prompting him to buy pillows for every season, holiday, mood, and passing whim until his couch became a plush topographical map of indecision. Guests were forced to remove stacks of embroidered owls, sequined leaves, and cryptic inspirational phrases just to sit down, and his closet eventually transformed into a textile avalanche waiting for the slightest vibration to collapse. By the time he added up his receipts, he realized he had spent more on pillows than on rent, comfort, or dignity, yet he insisted they elevated the space, a debatable claim given that no one could see the furniture anymore. 22. A woman bought a $750 cordless vacuum because an influencer declared it absolutely life-changing, though the vacuum's battery lasted approximately the length of a polite conversation, forcing her to clean with the frantic desperation of someone auditioning for a cleaning show speedrun. She purchased a $200 backup battery the company claimed would redefine convenience, but it redefined nothing except her tolerance for capitalism. Eventually, the vacuum stopped charging entirely, and customer service suggested replacing the unit, at which point she rediscovered the broom, a resilient, firmware-free technology costing $6 that had never once demanded Bluetooth pairing. 23. A man who fancied himself a mixology visionary purchased an $800 bartender kit featuring smoked glass domes, rare bitters, and a jigger forged by monks or some equally unnecessary artisans. Yet his first drink tasted like a bonfire dunked in regret. Guests pretended to enjoy his smoky concoctions while texting each other to confirm they were not ingesting hazardous materials, and he eventually abandoned the craft entirely, leaving the tools arranged on a bar cart as if awaiting a bartender who would never arrive. The entire setup now serves as a museum exhibit titled "The Financial Cost of Aesthetic Aspirations." 24. A woman invested in a $900 sleep optimization mat that tracked her breathing, temperature, restlessness, and nighttime performance, a metric no scientist has dared define. The mat sent nightly reports written with the passive-aggressive tone of a disappointed roommate. "You tossed 5 extra times tonight." Concerning, which led her to buy supplements, weighted blankets, and expensive pillow sprays in an effort to impress a mattress. Her sleep worsened as she became increasingly anxious about failing at rest, and the mat eventually recommended a premium tier for expanded analytics, essentially charging her extra to confirm she was still tired, still stressed, and now significantly poorer. 25. A man subscribed to a mystery tech box because he wanted monthly surprises from the future. But the future apparently consisted of useless items like a Bluetooth fork, a coaster that monitored humidity for reasons unknown, and a keychain that claimed to detect ghosts but mostly detected dead batteries. Each month he rationalized the cost by insisting he was building a tech arsenal, though the only thing he built was a drawer full of battery-draining plastic. Even as the company raised prices and promised premium experiences, he continued subscribing, proving his loyalty to disappointment was stronger than any wireless signal in the devices he received. 26. A woman installed a $900 automatic curtain system because manually drawing curtains was interrupting her flow state, but the system misfired constantly, sometimes opening at 3 a.m., like a theatrical jump scare for her sleeping cat. When she tried to adjust them manually, the curtains froze and beeped as though she had attempted unauthorized access to national secrets. Repairs required a specialist who blamed the behavior on a software mood issue, a diagnosis typically associated with distant Victorian relatives, not interior decor. The curtains now remain perpetually half open, symbolizing both her natural light exposure and her willingness to admit she made a wildly unnecessary purchase. 27. A man bought a $500 professional-grade label maker in an attempt to finally organize his life, promptly labeling every object he owned until his apartment looked like a forensic exhibit curated by a detective with anxiety. He labeled bowls, cords, remotes, the freezer, and eventually the label maker itself, at which point the project crossed into psychological territory. When he realized he could no longer remember which labels were updated and which were legacy, he began relabeling the labels, resulting in a feedback loop that consumed entire afternoons. The device now sits mislabeled in a drawer, proving his organizational system was undone by the very machine designed to save it. 28. A woman purchased a luxury treadmill equipped with a virtual coach who barked motivational slogans like a benevolent drill sergeant. But after one enthusiastic week, she realized running indoors still counted as running and therefore should be avoided. She muted the coach, draped laundry over the treadmill, and transformed it into a drying rack with a premium subscription. The machine continued sending weekly progress reports titled, "Your Movement Matters," an inspiring sentiment made deeply ironic by the fact that the treadmill had not moved in months. It stands now as a passive-aggressive piece of gym equipment observing her household like a judgmental metal giraffe. 29. A man invested in an $1,800 espresso machine because he claimed coffee shop lines were stealing his potential. But every shot he pulled tasted like caffeinated heartbreak. He purchased premium beans, upgraded filters, a precision tamper, a digital scale, and eventually a water filtration system large enough to run a small laboratory. His kitchen began to resemble a caffeine-obsessed science fair project, yet the espresso remained aggressively mediocre. He returned to the cafe for comparison, quietly acknowledging that the problem was neither the machinery nor the beans. It was the operator, whose only true skill was spending money on appliances that hated him. 30. A woman bought a $150 hydration tracking bottle that glowed, vibrated, and congratulated her for drinking water, syncing with her phone, watch, and possibly her soul to ensure she sipped on schedule. The bottle vibrated at inappropriate moments, including client meetings, making her hydration look like a medical situation. When she dropped it, the bottle declared its sensors compromised and demanded replacement parts nearly equal to the price of the bottle itself. She briefly considered returning to a normal water bottle before concluding she was too invested in the ecosystem to quit, a phrase typically uttered by people trapped in multi-level marketing schemes. The bottle continues monitoring her fluid intake with the intensity of a probation officer. 31. A man purchased a $1,000 immersive meditation pod shaped like a futuristic egg because he believed peace required Bluetooth. Yet the pod blasted ambient soundscapes at airplane volume and released fog intended to simulate mountain mist, which instead triggered his smoke alarm and convinced his neighbors he was conducting forbidden rituals. The pod reassured him through speakers, calm is within reach, while filling the room with enough artificial weather to qualify as a microclimate. He abandoned it after 3 chaotic sessions, but insists the pod served its purpose, even though the only purpose it clearly served was removing a paycheck from circulation. It now sits in the corner like a giant plastic egg of shame, silently judging every unmeditated breath he takes. And that's America's spending habits: chaotic, glittery, and financially indefensible. Drop your favorite disaster in the comments and vote for the dumbest one. Like, subscribe, and brace yourself. It only gets stranger.